can see you through your bedroom window. Oculus is a film that I was very late to the party on. And by that, I mean I watched it for the first time last week, and my gosh, was I missing out. I have now seen the movie twice over the past 3 days, because that's how much of a freaking ride this film is. I'm sure you all know what Oculus is, but in case you don't, it's a film directed by none other than old Mikey Boy Flanagan himself that involves a very scary, spooky mirror, and is, in my opinion, absolutely terrifying. However, not necessarily because of the spooky things that happen on screen, but more because of the implications and the drama in this film that brings so much dread. And you know what's even more dreadful than this movie? The fact that I'm about to ask you to like this video. I know, it's pathetic, but I can't help it. I'm addicted to asking you to like and subscribe. I thought since I watched this movie twice in 3 days, I should definitely talk about it over here because boy, do I have some thoughts. And although I think this movie is very well made, the more that I stew in this bologna soup, the more I think it doesn't work as a whole, especially because of that ending. Spoilers ahead, obviously. If you haven't seen this movie, I implore you, go watch it right now. Go watch it. Go watch it right now! So this movie opens up with the shot of two kids in a closet, looking terrified as beans about what's going on in their house. As they walk by the staircase, there is a spooky lady with glowing eyes in the spare room, and a grown man with a pew-pew pointed right at them. And well, you know, he pew-pewed away right at those children. And then we hard cut to a therapist's office, revealing that this was all a man's dream. This man's name is Tim Russell, and he is 21 years old. He's been in a psychiatric ward for 11 years because of what had happened to him and his sister, Kaylee. Although we don't know exactly what happened to them, we first see Kaylee in an auction looking to buy a very spooky Victorian mirror. And we learn that Tim is about to be let free, and Kaylee has a little bit of a plan to bring Tim back to their childhood home and defeat this evil mirror. Of course, there is some spooky things that happen in between, but we can skip over all of that stuff and get to the real meat and potatoes of this story, all right? No grits, give me the potatoes. The movie cuts back in time between the little kids that we saw at the beginning of this movie and the grown-up versions in the present day. We will talk about that plot mechanism a little bit later as it becomes more integrated in the third act. But as for now, we learned that the mirror was first introduced to the family 11 years ago and put up in their dad's new office in their new home, which is the exact same room that Kaylee is taking Tim to go and try and defeat this mirror once and for all. And by the way, she has an anchor mounted to the ceiling with 20-pound weights on it that whenever the timer goes off, the anchor will swoop down and break the mirror. That's just very important for you to know. She Home Alone booby-trapped this entire room. But this is where the plot starts to get very interesting because Tim is now reformed. He, of the two, is the only one that has gotten help after the traumatic experiences that they both had. So the question becomes, is this mirror actually haunted, or are all of these memories a way to cope with the familial trauma that these kids endured? And this, right here, is where things start to get crazy. So Kaylee brings Tim back to the house somewhat unwillingly, and it's right here that we learn that their mom lost her mind and their dad murdered their mom. The dad tried to kill Kaylee, but Tim took the gun that the dad had at the beginning of this movie and shot the dad. It was just a great big family memory here. Everybody just trying their absolute darndest to kill each other. And Kaylee probably watched The Ring before she did this because there is like a very cliche The Ring or Smile style lineage that the mirror was passed to this person, bad things happened. The mirror was passed to this person and bad things happened there. Very cliche stuff. But what's important now is Kaylee, under the possibly tainted memory of an abused child, thinks that the mirror is the cause of all of their problems. And I don't need to bore you with every little plot detail, but Tim doesn't believe that. Tim looks at all of these things from a logical standpoint. Kaylee saw a woman standing in Dad's office, which she presumes is a ghost, but Tim remembers that their dad was actually having an affair. Kaylee remembers Dad isolating himself because of the influence of the mirror, but men who are having affairs tend to isolate themselves, and that's why he's doing it under Tim's perspective. She distinctly remembers that the mirror ate a dog. He remembers that the dog had to be put down because the dog was sick. They both remember their mom having extreme mental issues, but she sees it as a mirror influencing her mother, but he sees it as a woman with an already broken mental state trying to go through the trauma that her abusive, cheating husband is putting her through. You can see how this is a very interesting mechanism to slowly unveil this plot. It just slowly continues to unfold before our eyes, and it turns out the mirror actually wasn't haunted at all. As Kaylee tries to feed the mirror a dog, she realizes the mirror didn't eat it. And as she says that all of the plants would die, the night is almost over and none of the plants have died. She says the temperature would rise, but that didn't happen either. Every test that she made has failed, which probably makes her feel a little silly for booby trapping the entire room, but I digress. So this leads to a very emotional part of the film where she realizes that her dad wasn't possessed by a ghost mirror, but he was actually a full-blown murderer. And this movie handles that really well. It lets us sit and mourn with her as she comes to terms with the fact that her mind has been... No, I'm just kidding. No, this scene doesn't last very long because as she is coming to terms with all of this trauma, this happens.
Haley?
So... yeah, this mother trucker is haunted. And it starts making itself known in this household, gosh darn it. It's not very subtle anymore. The mirror literally hits us with like a crap. Silence didn't push them off of my scent. Well, I guess it's time to make her eat a light bulb, I guess. When I said earlier that this movie is scary, this is where it really starts. Some of the body horror in this movie is gnarly. Not to mention the psychological stuff that we're about to get into. But like this scene with the father, for instance. Slight bloody content warning. When I first saw that scene, my wife was sleeping on the couch, and I woke her up by audibly saying, "Ew, no!" Not like that, really, but I am a total weenie. Like, I woke up my sleeping wife because I couldn't handle that scene. Anyway, this scene is forever burned in the back of my brain, but there is a ton of stuff like this in this movie. Like I mentioned, a light bulb scene. No. Just please... no, thank you. But the revelation of the haunted mirror is not just important for gross out, nasty little horror tidbits that they throw in here, but also very narratively as well. Because now we find out what really happened to her parents, and oh boy. What happens to her mom specifically is without a doubt one of the most shocking revelations I've seen in a long time. Which brings us to the gutsiest part of this movie that I have been dreading to talk about. So throughout this whole movie, we've been cutting back and forth between two timelines as previously mentioned, switching between timelines as often as I switch my underwear from inside out. It is nauseating to try and understand. So here goes my valiant effort. In the timeline of Christmas past, Mom, under the influence of the mirror, tries to kill her children, and Dad tries to stop her. Although I'm not sure why, because he's also being possessed. I guess the mom did try to attack the dad, but anyway, it's because plot stuff. So shut up about it. As dad stops her by choking her out, little girl Haley opens the door and sees mom and dad's laugh, discombobulated and also not breathing, so that's not cool. She freaks out because she's just a stupid little, dumb little, whiny little kid, and the dad tells her to close the door. Next, this is where things start to get super uncomfortable because he tells the kiddos to stay out of mommy and daddy's room because mom is very sick and needs time to rest and heal. I'm intentionally leaving out what's going on in this modern day right now because all of that would just convolute the important points I'm trying to make here. But through all of this, the adult versions are just wandering through this house, almost dying because the mirror is being a total jerk butt. And in the child timeline, after a while of dad sulking in the office looking at the mirror, the kids realize that they don't have any food and she has had enough. It's about time to go into mom and dad's room and see what has happened to her mother. And oh boy, do I wish she didn't do that. Ma'am, I wish you wouldn't have ruined my life. You can ruin your own, but don't show me what's in that freaking room. Because as she walks in, the view of her mother is hidden by the bed. And from her perspective, there is broken glass and blood all over the floor and the wall. Horrified by this grisly image, she continues to walk into the room, holding on to a quickly fading sense of hope that her mother is still alive. And sadly, I'm here to tell you that I think what she finds here is much, much worse because boo! Boo! Jump scare. Mom is alive and she is chained to the wall like a dog as she tries to hurt and kill her own child, snarling like some sort of rabid river otter. It's so gnarly. It is so disturbing to look at. Anywho, this third act really peaks there as mom has clearly lost her mind. Dad is now a murderous freak and the kids are left to defend themselves. Dad releases mom to attack the kids just to shoot her when she stops being violent towards the kids. And then he turns full Homer J. Simpson and attempts to strangle everything he can get his hands on. And while he wasn't looking, the son points the gun at the father as Tim struggles with the fact that he has to come to terms with what he has to do here, killing his own father. The dad takes the gun in Timbo's hands and his dad helps his son pull the trigger, which ultimately kills himself as he succumbs to his deadly fate. Wow, what a roller coaster. And we're not even done yet. The adult versions are still putzing around this place and getting jump scared every chance they can. And the paranoid Kaylee kills what she thinks is her ghost mom, but it turns out to be her fiance, who I haven't mentioned before because he's actually just her fiance. There's no more character development there. But for now, she's still putzing around and Tim has had enough. He goes into the room and he looks at that mirror and kisses it goodbye with his strikingly beautiful brown eyes. Tim releases the aforementioned anchor booby trap that Kaylee set up, finally putting an end to this freaking nightmare. And this right here is where this movie goes off the rails and the biggest issue of the film comes in. The anchor swings down and kills Kaylee. The mirror was warping Tim's sense of reality so he couldn't see his sister standing there. And let's just say, squish. Now here's the thing, okay? I hate this. I think it totally derails this ending. The reason that I find this movie so deeply unsettling is despite its super spooky mirror, it plays in a really grounded play box here. It's a really grounded story about cycles of abuse and childhood trauma, very real issues that we have in our world. And thankfully, I've never had to experience anything like that. But if I did, I think I would be very distraught by the end of this film. Because what exactly is Mike Flanagan trying to say? The message that he seems to be conveying to me is, hey, you can't outrun your trauma. You can spend the rest of your life trying to find help, confronting your past, and heck, even try to spend time defeating demons that were put there by your parents or family members by no fault of your own, but in the end, you will never be able to overcome. And on top of that, if you try, you might murder your sister. So there's that. Now, I know all of you Oculus apologists are going to say that the ending is what makes this film great and all, and I respect that, But to me, it seems like this movie does something that is genuinely cool in the third act with the perspective and timeline shifts, but it's obviously building to something. Something that wasn't paid off. Even if the timeline gets a little bit muddled, he was obviously building to a payoff where the kids are finally able to break free from the trauma once and for all. But that poetic ending was compromised by a need to, quote, shock the audience. Instead of these characters getting the triumphant ending that they deserve, Kaylee is dead. Tim is hauled off to prison where I'm sure he'll stay for the rest of his life, screaming that the mirror made him do it, but who's gonna believe him? It's so bleak. Do you see why this ending feels so gross and cheap to me? It feels like old Mikey boy was just trying to be super edgy for edgy's sake and compromise the character works and the arc that he was very clearly building up. And as I always say, just because something is shocking or takes a bold swing doesn't mean it's good. It's most important to get your characters into a thoughtful predicament or position at the end of your film, or if you're gonna do something bold and have something way out of left field happen, have something to say with that. I think of a film like Night of the Living Dead, where you think that the character might be victorious and he was gunned down. That was a shocking ending that was anticlimactic, but it had something to say about racism in our country. It's something meaningful. But here, it's just edginess at its worst. It's bold, but it has nothing to say. It leaves Oculus feeling empty. But that's kind of all I have to say about this film. It's really good, it's really well made, but I think the ending really derails it. Let me know what you think about Oculus down below. Does the ending make the film for you, or does it break the film for you? And please hit the like button and subscribe so that you can be a part of this family we have growing over here. And remember, you may be able to take the Gittle out of a scum, but you cannot take the scum out of a Gittle. Alright, bye.